J. Edgar Hoover, Power, Paradox, and the Making of America's FBI. For nearly 5 decades, one man sat at the intersection of fear and order. He watched gangsters fall, spies unravel, and presidents, 8 of them, come and go. He modernized American law enforcement. He also blurred its lines. His name was J. Edgar Hoover, FBI director, institution builder, and lightning rod. To some, a guardian against chaos. To others, a master of the shadow play. The files were many, the secrets were more, and the question echoes still. Who guards the guardians when the guardian never leaves? Chapter 1. Origins. Born in the capital. Raised by the ledger. January 1st, 1895. Washington, D.C. The capital city is a town of paper, protocol, and power. It's where J. Edgar Hoover is born to a lower middle-class family. His father, a government printer. His mother strict, ambitious, and ever-present. He grows up precise, orderly, and intense. In school, he struggles with a stutter and fights it with debate. He learns to weaponize research, to marshal facts like an army. After hours, he works at the Library of Congress, learning a different kind of muscle. The card catalog, names, cross-references, an index of everything. It's a metaphor in the making. Build a system to know the world, and the world becomes navigable. He attends George Washington University, earns a law degree while filing, indexing, and learning the government's nervous system from the inside out. Not charisma, catalogs. Not charm, systems. He studied the stacks and the silence of files, where secrets sleep in labeled aisles. Chapter 2. Apprenticeship in Fear. Raids radicals and a country on edge. 1917. World War I and the First Red Scare. Hoover joins the Department of Justice's War Emergency Division. The country is anxious. Bombs in mailbags, strikes across factories, revolution abroad. He rises fast by doing what Washington rewards, knowing more than the next man and answering before he's asked. By 1919, at just 24, he heads the General Intelligence Division, tasked with watching radicals, anarchists, communists. The Palmer raids sweep the country. Midnight arrests, mass detentions, deportations. It's a blunt instrument in a panicked time, and it makes Hoover's name as the government's organizer-in-chief against subversion. It also marks the first shadow on his legacy. Civil libertarians decry the raids as overreach, warrants stretched, rights trampled. The courts will chasten, the fever will break, but a lesson is set in Hoover's bone marrow. In a crisis, power expands to fill the room. Chapter 3. The Turning Point. 1924, and a mandate to clean house. The early 1920s leave the Justice Department bruised by scandal, corruption, favoritism, a public trust worn thin. In 1924, Attorney General Harlan Fiske Stone appoints Hoover to lead the Bureau of Investigation, the predecessor to the FBI. The message is simple: professionalize or perish. Hoover imposes a new creed: discipline, education, and a strict code. Agents must be college-educated, impeccably dressed, and trained. He bans drinking on duty, demands meticulous reports, and builds a culture where error is a sin and paperwork a sacrament. He centralizes records, expands the identification division, and pushes for a national fingerprint file. A nation of patchwork policing begins to look toward one hub, a bureau of data, science, and standards. He traded the chaos of the chase for the order of a ledger, turned rumor into record and instinct into measure. Chapter 4: Rise. G-men, gangsters, and the myth of the modern FBI. The early 1930s. Bank robbers on the front page, Tommy guns in hotel hallways, and headlines that make the public feel hunted. The Kansas City Massacre in 1933 shocks the nation. It also changes the law. Soon, federal agents carry guns and make arrests. The stage is set for Hoover's version of a national story. Under his direction, the Bureau hunts high-profile criminals. John Dillinger is shot outside a Chicago theater in 1934. Pretty Boy. Floyd falls. Babyface Nelson meets his end after a deadly shootout. Radio dramas christen the G-men, government men, as a new kind of American hero. In 1935, the Bureau of Investigation becomes the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Hoover is its first director and its chief storyteller. He builds pillars that endure. The FBI Laboratory, 1932. Championing forensic science. The National Academy, 1935. Training state and local officers. The Uniform Crime Reports, 1930 onward. A national picture of crime. Later, the 10 Most Wanted Fugitives list, 1950, turning manhunts into nationwide alerts. He understands something crucial. Americans don't just want safety. They want a symbol. The symbol is the FBI. Suits, fedoras, and a reputation. Hoover defends that brand like a trademark. The most effective weapon against crime is cooperation. Hoover would repeat versions of this idea for decades, urging federal, state, and local agencies to act as one, and asking the public to help. Chapter 5: Struggles beneath the shine, image, insecurity, and the demand for control. The fedora age glamour masks a harsh interior reality pressure. Hoover's bureau lives on credibility. Any public failure felt existential. He becomes a perfectionist and a political infighter. Agents recall relentless memos, performance charts, and the fear of disappointing a director who remembers everything. Rivalries simmer. Some agents chafe under tight control. Bureau critics accuse Hoover of staging the theater, arriving for the photo after the danger has passed, downplaying allied agencies, magnifying. The gangster fades. The spy takes shape. Not a bullet's bite, but a hidden tape. Chapter 6: The Cold War shift. Spies, sabotage, and a new kind of hunt. World War II brings sabotage scares and spy rings. Hoover's FBI breaks the Duquesne spy ring in 1941. 33 Nazi agents convicted. In the Cold War that follows, the Bureau pivots. Internal security, counterintelligence, and the battle against communist infiltration. Washington's temperature rises. Senator Joseph McCarthy breathes fire about communists in government. Hoover shares the anti-communist mission but dislikes McCarthy's recklessness. The Bureau prefers dossiers to demagoguery. Files are power. Verifiable, cross-referenced, quietly devastating. Hoover writes and lectures on the communist threat. In his 1958 book, Masters of Deceit, he delivers a line that captures the mood of the age. Quote with context. The individual is handicapped by coming face to face with a conspiracy so monstrous he cannot believe it exists. For Hoover, it explained why Americans underestimated infiltration and why vigilance had to be constant. Chapter 7, Power's Edge, COINTELPRO and the War in the Shadows. 1956. The Bureau formalizes a series of covert programs. COINTELPRO, Counterintelligence Program. Officially, the mission is to disrupt subversive groups, the Communist Party USA, and later, civil rights organizations, anti-war groups, black nationalist movements, and the New Left. Tactic spiral, informants, disinformation, infiltration, and black bag jobs, surreptitious break-ins. The line between security and suppression starts to blur. The stated aim: neutralize violent or foreign-directed threats. The effect: too often, chill lawful dissent. No case looms larger than Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The FBI under Hoover wiretaps King, initially authorized by the Attorney General, later deepened, and compiles intimate recordings. In 1964, a notorious anonymous letter is sent. The ideology at war. Hoover's worldview: order first. Perceived subversion is a spark that must be crushed before it becomes a fire. The Constitution's challenge: rights first. Dissent is not danger by default. When guardians go too far, the shield becomes a sword. And trust, the hardest treasure, can no longer be stored. Chapter 8. Battles in the open. Presidents, attorneys general, and public feuds. Hoover's tenure spans 8 presidents. With Franklin D. Roosevelt, he grows the Bureau's reach. Harry Truman bristles at anything resembling a secret police. Dwight Eisenhower values discipline. John F. Kennedy and his brother, Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, clash quietly with Hoover over priorities and methods. Civil rights, especially. Lyndon Johnson leans on Hoover's authority, seeing him as a stabilizing force in a volatile era. Richard Nixon admires Hoover's toughness and political instincts. Rivalries flare, with RFK, turf, tactics, and the moral center of the civil rights struggle. With civil rights leaders, a relentless, often intrusive surveillance posture. Inside the Bureau, senior aide William Sullivan breaks with Hoover in 1971, criticizing politicization and overreach. Hoover never loses a Bureau battle in Washington. Not once. He knows how to survive, cultivate allies, keep receipts, and make himself indispensable. Justice is incidental to law and order. It's a line widely attributed to Hoover, capturing how critics saw his priorities: stability over nuance, security over process. Admirers heard resolve, detractors heard warning. Chapter 9. Achievements again. Science, standards, and the national blueprint. It's tempting to see Hoover only through controversy. But the architecture he built is real and lasting. Forensics. The FBI lab sets benchmarks in ballistics, document examination, and later, DNA science. Training. The National Academy professionalizes policing nationwide. Thousands of police leaders carry that training home. Information. The fingerprint repository evolves into national criminal databases. Later systems will owe their spine to these early files. Public alerts. 10 Most Wanted turns the country into a lookout. The crowd as force multiplier. Coordination. Joint cases with state and local agencies become the norm, not the exception. He sells a federal idea that the United States can have local policing and a national standard. Both. That duality becomes a model many countries study. He built a ladder from lab to law, from dusty prints to a nation's awe. Chapter 10. The curtain lifts. Leaks, break-ins, and congressional reckoning. March 8th, 1971. A small group calling itself the Citizens Commission to Investigate the FBI breaks into an FBI office in Media, Pennsylvania. They steal files and mail them to reporters. The documents reveal COINTELPRO. The headlines crackle. A new season begins. Public trust wobbles. The Watergate era is dawning. After Hoover's death, the Senate's Church Committee, 1975 to 76, investigates intelligence abuses across agencies. It documents domestic spying, harassment of activists, warrantless surveillance, and the corrosive effect of secrecy without oversight. Reforms follow. The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA, Court for National Security Wiretaps. Attorney General Guidelines, tighter rules on informants, congressional oversight committees. The shape of the modern intelligence oversight system is born, out of the shadow of Hoover's methods. Chapter 11, Persona and PR. The director is brand. Hoover understands image like a studio head. The Bureau co-produces narratives, magazine spreads, radio dramas like G-Men, and a Hollywood film, The FBI Story 1959, starring James Stewart, with Hoover's blessing. The message is consistent. The FBI is incorruptible, scientific, and relentless. Inside the building, standards are strict. Short hair, conservative suits, no facial hair, immaculate files. He likes order not just on the page, but in the mirror. The paradox is stark. He creates an American archetype, clean-cut, by-the-book lawmen, while sometimes writing rules in pencil when the law feels too slow. Chapter 12. Impact. What he built, what he broke. What he built. A national law enforcement institution grounded in science, training, and shared standards. A culture of professionalism that lifted policing across thousands of departments. A counterintelligence apparatus that confronted real espionage and sabotage. What he broke. Trust in moments when surveillance crossed into suppression. The line between security and civil liberty, especially under COINTELPRO. The idea that unelected power should be time-limited. He served nearly 48 years, an institutional sun that never set. He forged a shield that stopped the knife, but etched a scar across civic life. Chapter 13, Death and the Day After. May 2nd, 1972, J. Edgar Hoover dies in his Washington home, age 77. The Capitol pauses. Flags lower. Law enforcement officers line the streets. President Richard Nixon delivers a tribute. He is buried in Washington's Congressional Cemetery. The public reaction is mixed. Respect from those who saw safety where chaos might have been. Relief from those who saw a period ending. Unease from those who feared what the files still held. Within months, the country plunges deeper into Watergate. the timing feels symbolic, an era of secrecy giving way to an era of exposure. The FBI headquarters will bear his name. Debates will swirl for decades over whether it should. Chapter 14, Legacy, Guardian, Gambler, or Warning Label. Ask a room about Hoover and watch the room divide. To some, he is the father of modern American policing. Method over myth, science over swagger, coordination over chaos. To others, he is a cautionary tale, concentrated power without expiration dates, surveillance aimed inward, dissent mistaken for danger. Both can be true. Legacies are not verdicts, they're mirrors. They force us to ask not only who Hoover was, but who we want our guardians to be. The most effective weapon against crime is cooperation. This is the Hoover many admire, an organizer, a coordinator, a builder of bridges across the thin blue line. The individual is handicapped by coming face to face with a conspiracy so monstrous he cannot believe it exists. This is the Hoover many fear, seeing threats so large that extraordinary means feel necessary. Justice is incidental to law and order, widely attributed. This line sounds like a creed to critics and a misquote to some defenders, but it captures the tension he embodied: ends versus means. Chapter 15, The Final Turn. Oversight, memory, and the measure of a republic. The Hoover story doesn't end with a funeral. It ends with a question that won't die. How do free nations fight real threats without becoming what they fear? The reforms after Hoover were not a rebuke of safety. They were a defense of liberty. FISA courts, guidelines, oversight committees, they are the locks on the door and the windows in the room. They slow us down just enough to see what we're doing. Hoover's life is a paradox we inherit. He gave the country tools to fight crime. He taught the country why those tools need rules. In the archives where the tape reels spin, we count our losses, tally wins. A file can guard, a file can pry. A free flag flies with an open sky. Hoover's life is both a warning and a foundation. He reminds us that institutions are only as noble as the limits they accept, and as strong as the scrutiny they survive. He reminds us that order is a promise, and liberty is the price if that promise forgets its oath. Let the last word be one he championed across America's patchwork of precincts and patrol cars, an ideal that still holds when it's honest and mutual.